Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is here, everyone. Welcome back to Growing Up in Scientology, where every day is a good day not to be in a cult. Oh my God, what a week it has been. What a week it has been. I am physically and emotionally exhausted just from the pure emotion of the week. I think in the last 48 hours, I have a combined total of 8 hours of sleep. I'm just so wired from the emotion of Danny Masterson going to prison. It's just really something. And so, I didn't manage to get any videos done today, although today was slam packed. I mean, I was only lazy today with respect to doing videos. I was not lazy in any other respect. And I figured, you know what? It has been a while since we just did a Friday night Q&A, and it's a little early, a little more friendly for the European audience. So I'm planning on doing 2 hours. Let's do 2 hours, folks. And then I got to pick up my daughter from work. So timing works out perfectly. And we're going to do as many questions as I can, not just super chats. We're going to do regular chats. We're doing everything under the sun, moon, and stars. It's a good week. It's just a really damn good week. And I forgot to get my SPTV mug, so we're going full mason jar tonight. That's some good water. So actually, there's one thing I do want to do. I've been a little negligent on my duties to the channel's #1 sponsor, Ridge. So to get this party started, let me show you the 30-second ad I recorded today for Ridge. And I really do use the wallet, guys. Check this out. The #1 sponsor of SPTV is Ridge. And this Father's Day, Ridge has made finding the perfect Father's Day gift a whole lot easier. Check out Ridge's low-profile wallets and their key cases at ridge.com/AARun. The Ridge wallet holds up to 12 cards, very easy to pop them in and out. And the key case keeps my keys from scratching my phone's screen in my pocket. People ask me all the time how they can support the channel. One of the ways to do that is by supporting our sponsors. So find the perfect Father's Day gift now using my link, ridge.com/AARun, and save up to 40% off through June 15th. That's ridge.com/AARun. Isn't that cool? It really is my everyday wallet. It's not just something I say for the ads, and I probably shouldn't flash my credit cards. But and I'll tell you what, the Ridge products are not cheap. They're a little pricey. But Ridge sends me a whole ton of these things. And in fact, in the mail today, they sent me 2 of their new leather bound ones, which is the first time they've had leather wallets. I should have grabbed them and showed them. But anyway, yeah, Ridge wallets, #1 sponsor of SPTV. And usually in my ads, I'll say, you got to be crazier than L. Ron Hubbard to still carry one of these fat wallets around in your pocket. And I'll tell you, Ridge has to approve that ad. They do not mind at all that I say that. So, that's one example of Scientology not being able to fair game my sponsors. My sponsors already know who they're sponsoring when they know what rodeo they're whatever the right words are there, guys. They know what they're getting themselves into. Okay, so let's see. So what did I title? I put the hashtags on this stream as Scientology, AMA, and Danny Masterson, because I predict there's just a heck of a lot of people who still have Danny Masterson questions. That's inevitable. So it's not that this Q&A specifically focused on Danny Masterson. We're doing everything, guys. So as I am responding to super chats, I will look for regular chats as well. So forgive me if I'm staring off to the side all of the time. All right, let's start. Claire Alice. Haven't been able to catch a live lately. Wanted to say congrats regarding the verdict. Nice work all around. Huge win. It is such a huge win. It is just such a huge win. I spoke. Leah Remini called me this morning because actually I've texted with her since the verdict, but I hadn't spoken to her. And she goes, "What did you do? What did you do when you heard the verdict?" I was like, "I pretty much cried." And she was like, me too. It's just, God, just all of the Scientology shit they get away with all the time. The lawsuits, the constant victories in the civil suits of being forced into internal arbitration. Luis Garcia got screwed. Valerie Haney got screwed. Valeska Paris is getting screwed. Laura and Gawain Baxter are getting screwed, by the court system currently. The first Danny Masterson trial wound up in a hung jury. It was like finally something went the way it should have gone. And it's just amazing. And I will accept compliments on coverage of the trial. I will not accept compliments on the verdict. No one covering the trial had any outcome on the verdict. That is purely credit for that goes purely to the victims, the witnesses, the prosecutors who did all the heavy lifting. Anyway, thank you, Claire Alice. I very much appreciate it. Lethanda Grauklinga, thank you for considering the European time. Yes, and it turns out it's better for me too. It's better for me too. So maybe I'll try not to do super late night live streams. I mean, it's been a while since I've done a super late night live stream, but I think generally when I have done Friday night lives or Saturday night lives, I start at like 8 or 9 o'clock, which no bueno. Thank you, Lethanda. Julie Denny, is Mary Stuart Masterson related to Danny Masterson? The answer to that one is no relation. Nancy Stitchin, Aaron, when a person gets sent to the RPF, do they keep their status on the bridge or do they move back down because they're in trouble? Excellent question, Nancy. So I should start by saying currently Scientology has somewhat disbanded the RPF. There's nobody on the RPF. They've suspended the practice of assigning people to the RPF. They have gotten rid of the post called RPFIC, or the RPF in charge, the Rehabilitation Project Force in charge. Oh, and by the way, for those of you watching, the RPF is the Rehabilitation Project Force. It is the reconditioning labor camp where they send Sea Org members instead of declaring them suppressive persons. And they have suspended it for the time being. Quick answer. Yes, your status on the bridge is not something you earn per se. It's considered just sort of a technical fact. What would be an example of this? God, I'm trying to think of some analogy. Yeah, you cannot be penalized by having your case state revoked. If we're talking about auditing, you can be penalized by having your auditor certificates revoked or canceled. So remember, if you look at the bridge, Scientology's bridge to total freedom, on the left-hand side of the bridge, those are auditor training levels. On the right-hand side of the bridge, those are the auditing levels. When you receive a certain auditing action, when you finish that action and you attest to completing it, that's considered your case level. You cannot be penalized by having your case level taken away. You can have your case level taken away, but it's not a penalty. It would be somebody reviewed your auditing folders and determined something had been, done incorrectly. So yeah, I hope that was a good answer. Thank you, Nancy Stitchin, and a very generous super chat. Thank you very much. Okay, John Sistowski. It is spelled Sistowski, but it's pronounced Smork and Gruberski. Did you find a place for French dip, or are you forced to make your own? First of all, John, thank you for the French dip that you sent me. It's still sitting on the kitchen counter out there. I haven't had a chance to use it yet. And I did find a place. And it turns out it's one of my favorite places to eat. I just tend not to look at the menu and didn't know they order French dip sandwiches. It's called the Sunset Grill. It's on Sunset Point here in Clearwater. And I hear they have some of the best French dip sandwiches in town. And I'm giving it away a little bit. I still have not actually been there to order it. But I've been informed that it's there. So I will go soon. Always good to see you, John. Thank you so much. Oh, by the way, John, I got the Gumby dog toy this week too. Thank you for that. Katie McCafferty. Mexico census 100. Wait, is that Mexico or Italy? Is that Mexico or Italy, you guys? Hit me up in the live chat right now. Is that a Mexican flag or an Italian flag? I'm looking, guys. Hit me up. I grew up in a cult. I don't know my flags very well. That's Ireland? Now you know I really don't know my flags very well. Okay. Irish census for Ireland, 132 Scientologists. COS stands for Church of Scientology, guys. More declared Satanists and Jedi than Scientologists. Incredible. And Scientology has recently spent, also, by the way, a ton of money to establish their center in Ireland, not because there was any organic or even artificial demand for Scientology. But I believe what they're doing is what's called in the corporate world as a tax inversion strategy. I won't try to define it, but there is a reason why an awful lot of the world's pharmaceutical companies have changed their headquarters to Ireland. It has to do with the tax strategy. Remember, there's a whole lot of Scientology, there are a whole lot of countries in the world where Scientology doesn't have tax exempt status. So they do all this whole corporate shell game to pretty much act like their Irish headquarters is the worldwide headquarters for all of the centers that are located in countries where Scientology doesn't have tax exempt status. I am almost positive that is why Scientology has invested so much money in Ireland recently. Thank you for the super chat, Katie. Destiny Salazar, always good to see you, Destiny. We all cried, Ron. It's a natural response when you have empathy. Thank you for holding space for all of us here. Thank you. Thank you very much for the kind words, and thank you very much for the super chat. Ron and Cheryl. No one here would ever describe you, Mr. Ron, as lazy. Much love for you and all the hardworking SPTV crew. It's funny, I do think of myself as being a professional procrastinator. I know it doesn't seem like it, but it's how I feel. Maybe it's because my normal is wound so tight from growing up in and working for a cult for all of my formative years. I mean, I worked full time, meaning 7 days a week, 100 hours a week, whatever, for Scientology from the age of 12 to 26. So, I enjoy generally laying in bed and watching YouTube. That's my favorite activity. I also enjoy doing YouTube videos. I also enjoy doing real estate. But my favorite thing to do is to do nothing. So yeah, that's okay. I take the compliment. Thank you, Ron and Cheryl. I appreciate it. Okay. What do we have next here? Jenny Scott. What is the church's attitude towards autism and neurodiversity, especially with a stance on psych, etc.? Conversation with my husband got me curious about it. Yeah, this is an interesting one. Here's fundamentally how Scientologists think about it. That there could be a brain problem. It's not like they don't believe in brain problems, neurological problems. It's that they believe the Thetan, the spirit, should be able to repair those problems. And the reason those problems exist in the first place have something to do with some bad things that Thetan, spirit, person, did in their most recent past life, most likely, or if not, some other previous life. Technically speaking, the way Scientologists think about things, it really should be something you did in your most recent past life. And this is why sometimes I get emotional talking about this subject, because you asked me the nice version of the question where you're just talking about autism and neurodiversity. But if you ask me about like handicapped kids, that's where I get a little choked up talking about this subject. Because technically speaking, Scientologists believe anything that's wrong with your body that you were born with, you did that to yourself. And you did that to make yourself less effective in this lifetime. And you made yourself less effective because you're doing a lot of bad shit in your past lifetime, and making yourself less effective by handicapping yourself, either physically, like body-wise or brain-wise or any otherwise. You did that to yourself as a thing. You did that. They believe that theta is all the same thing. It's like spirit energy is the senior most the senior most element, that it is the prime mover unmoved. This is why I say, Scientologists don't believe in a God. They don't believe in a supreme being. They don't believe in a single entity that represents the prime mover unmoved, because they believe all thetans and theta collectively and individually are that. There is no force in existence that manipulates the physical universe other than theta. And your brain and your body are just part of the physical universe. So their attitude is that these things do exist, but they're not psychological problems, because Scientologists don't believe that your problems come from your brain. They believe the brain is essentially a switchboard for your thetan. Well, you are a thetan. For the thetan to sort of operate the body. Now, don't think about it too carefully, because if you're a Scientologist and you actually believe what L. Ron Hubbard says a thetan shouldn't need a switchboard. A thetan shouldn't need to use the brain as a switchboard to operate the eyes and the mouth. The thetan should just be able to operate the eyes and the mouth. And actually, when a Scientologist says they got auditing and their eyesight got better, that's actually what they mean. They mean it's not their eyes that were bad. It's them as a thetan wasn't looking, and they got some auditing and they woke up a little bit and they had some realizations about life. And as a thetan, they just started looking a little clearer. They just, from in the eye. Anyway, it gets a little weird, guys. If Scientologists were to allow themselves to take a little bit of time and think about a lot of these different concepts in Scientology more deeply than they're usually encouraged to, they would see a lot of them are huge conflicts, throughout the entire Scientology belief system. So I'm getting a little off the beaten path of this question. So, yeah. So, well, because they don't believe the problem lies in the brain specifically, they don't believe the conditions can be fixed with medicine or medication. And that's kind of the fundamental reason they don't believe in them. There's also another thing where L. Ron Hubbard said, if you take these medications, you're not allowed to get Scientology auditing for the rest of your life. So that's really what motivates Scientologists not to take those medications. But the way it's sort of justified is that those medications don't fix the problem. They mask the problem, and only improving the capability of the thetan so that the thetan can heal the body and whatever's wrong with it, mentally, neurologically, whatever. They believe that's the only true way to fix anything. So anyway, I hope that's a good answer. Thank you for the super chat, and thank you, Seeker, for the super sticker. Let's see. M. Nancy 01. Where has Mike and Mark been? Kind of missing them. Just finished Mark's book, Unreal, the crap they went through. Well, Mike's been getting his cough fixed. You guys who watch the channels know Mike's been coughing for a long time. So he's getting that treated. So he's probably going to be out of commission for a bit. And so on the Monday night live streams, what I've started doing is using it as an opportunity to feature not only a bunch of the other SPTV channels, but it also occurred to me, why should we only feature people who have channels? Maybe there's a bunch of people out there who want to join in on Q&As and live streams, but don't have channels yet, and would also be an amazing addition to the SPTV experience as a whole. So I've started reaching out to a whole bunch of SPTV channels, of course, and also to just other former Scientologists who may not even be interested in having channels, but would be interested in participating in SPTV. So that we're going to get a lot more exposure, include a lot more people, get a lot more viewpoints and different experiences talked about. And I think it's going to be a really awesome thing. So I think Mark's just been traveling, honestly. Thank you, M. Nancy. Okay, Danielle Demchak, sending my love from the top of Sandy Ridge, Pennsylvania. Beautiful. Thank you for the super chat, Danielle. I appreciate it. Russ Hampton. Hope the info I sent helps. Danny is done. Oh, Russ, that's you, Russell. Yes, I have had, well, I hope you don't mind my saying, Russ. Russ shared with me a whole bunch of information about what it is like being in the California prison system from the perspective of firsthand experience. And I'm actually shocked how many separate people have emailed me similar information, saying I was personally incarcerated in the California prison system for X number of years, and I'd like to share with you exactly what Danny Masterson's experience is going to be. Because I did a video, I did one video with my lawyer friend Zach, where he gave me his perspective on what Danny Masterson's is going to be experiencing on his in his new home, jail and then prison. And then I did another video with John Poe, retired police chief from Luna Pier, Michigan, and he gave me his perspective as a former law enforcement officer of what Danny's experience is going to be. But the one perspective we haven't heard yet on my channel is the perspective from a former inmate. And I think I'm going to do a video. I think the first video I'm going to do on this is with Nasty Nathaniel. We were actually talking about doing it today, but the day totally got away from me. So maybe we'll do it tomorrow. Of Nasty Nate's going to tell us exactly what Danny has in store for him over the next several months. So anyway, thank you, Russ. I really appreciate the information. I didn't know your last name. You didn't give me your last name in the email, by the way. So I had to save you as something else. Okay, let's see. What do we have? Beachcomber finally managed to order my cropped SPTV hoodie from Europe. I also need sleep. Yes, Beachcomber, I'm so glad that was able to get sorted out. Guys, I have a merch store set up on my YouTube channel now. And the one piece of merch that I know I have to add in there that I haven't added yet is the every day is a good day not to be in a cult. I gotta create merch with that setting. But there's a bunch of merch in there. And so Beachcomber was trying to order something and ship to Europe, and we couldn't figure out how to get it shipped from Europe, but we got that sorted out. So actually in the description of this video is a link to the merch store. If you want to get some really cool stuff, please feel free to check that out. Awesome. Let's see what's next. Ken's channel. Ken, always good to see you, man. Been watching a ton of mainstream YouTube channels to see how coverage on Danny is, and it's so awesome to see comments are easily 95% pro Jane Doe's and anti-Scientology. Few trolls and few he's innocent. Feels like a huge tide has turned. It really does. I've been really surprised to see all of the coverage, and pleasantly surprised, very happy to see all the coverage. Different channels, different videos, racking up tons and tons of views. Like, people are really, the exposure of this issue has been extremely successful. Thank you for the super chat, Ken. Let me see, Cassandra Reiners. Okay, so I saw a pic of you guys with Neil deGrasse Tyson at the Emmys. Any chance he can come to your channel to dissect the Xenu story? You know, the reason you saw that photo of us with Neil deGrasse Tyson at the Emmys is because I actually went up to him. I went up to him. Neil deGrasse Tyson and his show, like something Cosmos, or Cosmos, Discovering the Cosmos, something Cosmos, was nominated for an Emmy in the same category as Leah Remini's Scientology in the Aftermath. And this was for season 1. And when I looked at all of the nominees in that category, I thought, shit, Neil could win this thing. And as many of you know, Scientology in the Aftermath won the Emmy. And the category was informational series. It's different than straight up reality TV. Reality TV is like the Kardashians. That's actually scripted stuff. Best informational series, totally unscripted. And Leah won. And so then afterwards, I went up to Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he was with his son. And I said, you know what? I just wanted to let you know that out of all the other nominees, I thought you were the one that might win. And he goes, you know what? There are some years that you know which show has to win because you know it's what's right. And that's what he had to say about the Aftermath show winning the Emmy that year. And it was really incredible. And also, I just love him. So it was awesome to meet him and to shake his hand and to talk to him. I doubt Mr. deGrasse Tyson would come on my channel just to talk about Xenu. But it doesn't hurt to ask. I don't have his email or his number or anything, but maybe I'll hunt him down in the Twitterverse and just ask him just for fun. I wonder if he would be one of these guys who's a little sensitive to being criticized for making fun of Scientology. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe he wouldn't want to feel like he's picking on a minority religious group or something like that. But it can't hurt to ask. So I'll try to do that. Thank you, Cassandra. Okay, we have Marilyn Honig. Marilyn, always good to see you. Okay, hey, Aaron. Thoughts on Ashley Banfield's treatment by Scientology before she interviewed Claire? Oh, yes, I'm glad you asked me about this because I was actually thinking about even doing a little video on this. She called them out. She said she was creeped out that they contacted her personally. Claire's response was awesome. Yeah, so for those of you who may not know what we're talking about, Ashley Banfield, I guess, has a political show. Like, I've never seen her show. And I to be honest, I didn't recognize the network. Like I saw the video clip. I didn't recognize the network she's on. Is it one of these new independent networks? But I recognize her name and I vaguely recognize her face. She is a political pundit, right? She's not just a news person. And she did a segment on Danny Masterson and the trial, and she interviewed Claire. And as a part of this interview, Ashley Banfield said, I've been in this business for a long time. And in advance of this interview, Scientology got wind that we were going to be doing it. Now, my first thought when I heard that was, how in the hell is that happening? Who on your staff or at your network is leaking shit to Scientology? And Ashley did not mention that. But she said, I got a call, several calls, actually, from a Corinne Powell, who insisted that I confront you, Claire, on some of the accusations that Scientology has about you. And Ashley said she basically felt stalked and harassed and a little threatened and intimidated. I'm slightly putting words into Ashley's mouth, but you could tell Ashley was being pretty careful about what she said. She said, I was creeped out. I was really creeped out. She said they didn't reach me through normal professional channels. They had someone research me and look into my background and get my personal contact info and reach me directly. And she was creeped the hell out. And Marilyn, this is just an instance of Scientology can't help themselves. They cannot help but to perpetuate, to continue to create these horrible impressions of themselves, because it's not just impressions, it's who they really are. It's how they really operate. It's what the policies really say they're supposed to do. And plus, you got this little psychotic maniac, David Miscavige, running around cursing and screaming at everybody for why they're not doing more to help him. And why does everyone leave everything up to him? And the Corinne Powells of Scientology partially run around and do all this shit just so they can report back to Miscavige that they did all this shit. Not because they think it's actually productive, but because they sort of have no choice. It's remarkable. It is remarkable. I mean, guys, I'm sure most of you haven't heard this story. Many of you might be familiar with the interview David Miscavige gave Ted Koppel live on Nightline. I actually have the whole interview on my channel. This was in like 1992, maybe. David Miscavige showed up to that interview. Mike Rinder was with him. And Mike Rinder told the story that they were in the back in the green room. And the producer came in and said it was supposed to be something like there was an interview portion of the segment, but then there's what they call Nightline had what they call packages, pre-recorded packages that they were gonna air. And forgive me, I'm going to get this some details on this story wrong, but it was something like they changed the plan at the last minute on Miscavige as far as which package was going to be aired when. It was something like if it was something like they were going to air a 10-minute package or a 5-minute package, and then they were going to interview Miscavige, and then they were going to air another 5-minute package, and then they were going to interview him more. Miscavige felt like they were trying to pull one over on him. Miscavige physically grabbed the producer, shoved him up against the wall, and threatened him. So he's assaulting this guy and threatened him. You're going to show both of those packages right in the beginning, or I'm walking right now. I'm telling the story because it's in the DNA of the organization, because it's in Miscavige's DNA to act like a maniac. To act like a maniac, and he gets away with it, and he expects people in the organization to act the way he acts. And so that's why it happens. That's why they do what they do, guys. It's insane. Grace says, I know Philly cheesesteaks are famous, but I really miss the Italian hoagie. Love a good French dip. God, I haven't thought about hoagies in a while. They don't call them hoagies down here in Florida. You know, they call them Subway sandwiches or subs. But yes, a really good Italian hoagie. I haven't had a really good Italian hoagie in a while. God, you got me all nostalgic now, Grace. Thank you for the super chat. Let's see. Gina T. Could you give some more info on the story of Mark Yeager sent to live in a cage? Well, guys, please keep in mind, any information that I have about this is just what I'm regurgitating from what, you know, Mike and Mark and Claire and Amy and Janice and Mark Fisher and Jeff Hawkins have told. But here's my understanding. I don't remember what it is that Mark Yeager got in trouble for. Remember, Mark Yeager was one of the most senior managers in all of Scientology. He's most famously known for being the commanding officer of CMO Int. And we don't need to define all these terms, but it is essentially the senior most manager in Scientology other than David Miscavige. And he was sent to live on a portion of the base that was a swamp. And he was made to build his own, I don't want to call it a cage. I would want to call it, what is structure? What if you're going camping and you build yourself what do you call it? Some cover for the weather. What do you call it, guys? Help me in the live chat. I mean, he could build a lean-to. Like, he was basically building himself something to live in, something to, I don't know, like to protect him from the elements, to protect him from the rain. And apparently in this swamp, what you had was a ton of bamboo growing. A shelter. A shelter is exactly the word I was looking for. Thank you. And apparently there was just bamboo. So he ended up, and he lived here. He lived out there. The last I was told was like close to a year. And he would have to cut down the bamboo and fashion himself a shelter. And then he like built a whole fence around the place. And like, I don't even know, but those are all the details that I have. I mean, it's absolute insanity. There's not a public Scientologist in the world who would actually believe that story unless they had experience working at Scientology's international base. My experience in Scientology on staff and in the Sea Org is at the local city level. Even in the Sea Organization, you know, I worked at what they call ASHA, or the American St. Hill Organization. I also worked at what they call AOLA, or the Advanced Organization of Los Angeles. Technically speaking, I would still describe those as city-level organizations. It's underneath continental management. It's not middle management. It's not international management. Even I would not have believed such a thing like what happened to Mark Yeager could have occurred at international management if I hadn't heard the story 5 to 10 times from 5 to 10 different people. It's crazy. And again, you go, how could something like that happen? That is purely a product of David Miscavige's mind. That's not even normal. Like, that's not normal in Scientology. That's why I said no Sea Org member would believe that unless they had experience working with Miscavige. No public Scientologist would believe that. That is purely a product of David Miscavige's insanity. Thank you for the super chat, Gina. Crazy to see Ashley Banfield tell Claire how Scientology came after her when she scheduled the interview. YouTuber Sloan did a video on the trial and they came after him. I'm glad you mentioned Sloan. I was actually going to do a video about that. But the reason I didn't is I went back to try and see what Scientology content Sloan did that he, because he said that when he did the Scientology videos, his numbers plummeted. But the only Scientology video I saw had really good numbers. So I felt like I must have been missing something. But I was going to, so for you guys, Sloan is a very big YouTuber who, he seems to be involved in some different variety of YouTube drama where a lot more than one person is coming after him. It made me question whether Scientology was really one of the entities coming after him. Anyway, I don't want to be too long-winded about it. But yes, going rogue, it was crazy. Thank you for the super chat. Okay, Michelle Carpenter. Are there specific stories about OTs healing or dismissing illness illnesses that are told as urban legends in Scientology, like opposite of a cautionary tale to reinforce the core beliefs, like David Miscavige's asthma. 100% yes. I guess I should say 100% yes. You hear these stories all the time. Probably most, I went to the doctor. He said I had high blood pressure, high cholesterol. I needed a stent. I needed this. I needed that. And I had this auditing action. I went back and the doctor was shocked. He said, "What have you done? It's a miracle. You're all better now." Many Scientologists tell stories like this about eyesight, glasses. I went to the doctor. He said, "Something must be wrong. My equipment must be broken. It says your eyes are 20/20. Little did he know, I did my objectives. I finished my survival rundown. I can see better now." Meanwhile, the guy's still wearing glasses. Yeah, there's so many. Now you're asking specifically about healing illnesses. But Michelle, if you haven't seen this, you're going to get a huge kick out of it. In Scientology's advanced organizations, the advanced organizations are the ones that deliver the OT levels. They each have their own magazine. And the one I'm most familiar with is called the Advanced Mag. I'm not sure if that's just for LA or if every advanced org in the world calls their magazine the Advanced Mag. In these magazines, they have what are called the OT phenomena stories. Every one of these stories is some anecdote, some absurdly silly anecdote about a Scientologist demonstrating OT phenomena. It's usually not about healing a sickness. It's usually something about preventing a car crash or stopping someone from walking into the street or traveling many miles, being late for work. You're supposed to be in work in 5 minutes and it's 10 miles away, and you used your OT powers to drive the whole way there. And magically, by the time you got there, there was still 1 minute before you were supposed to be there. Meanwhile, their clock was probably just set wrong. So there's all sorts of stories, not just about healing illnesses. And they're so silly. They're so silly. I love getting my hands on those magazines. If I get my hands on the new ones, I'll actually do videos about them because they're that entertaining. Let's see. Pat Shore. Claire Bear was on one of the morning talk shows talking about the verdict, and the person doing the interview said she'd gotten a couple emails before the interview telling her how bad Claire was. Can't remember who. Well, there you go, Pat. Now you know it was Ashley Banfield. Bada bang. Thank you for the super chat. Don's mom, 725. Dom's mom. Very cool. Big fan. Couldn't be happier for the Jane Does and all impacted by this win. Would love to hear your wife's thoughts on the trial, given her experience. Now, remember, my wife's only experience was Jane Doe 1 came to her around the time when this was all being hashed out in Scientology. So this would have been, oh my God. I want to try to specifically remember when Jane Doe 1 wrote her reports in Scientology. We're talking sometime 2002, 2003, 2004-ish, that time frame. And Jane Doe 1 was unhappy with how the Scientology authorities were dealing with her, and she went to my wife for help. So it's not that my wife was the first person to know about what Danny did to Jane Doe 1. It's just that my wife is one of the people who would be able to corroborate that, yes, Jane Doe 1 really did come forward about this stuff, and there really was a lot of shenanigans going on behind the scenes. There is another Scientologist who is still in Scientology and so has never come forward publicly. There's another Scientologist who came to my wife. My wife's position in the Sea Org was such, she's one of the people, a relatively senior position, called the LRH host, the L. Ron Hubbard host. And it's a position that's supposed to have enough authority that people who aren't getting the help that they need could go to her, and she would have the authority not just to take the complaint, but to get the people who are screwing up to do it right. So, yes, the last port of call, if you will. So anyway, her experience was just having firsthand knowledge that these things occurred. But she wasn't actually involved in the handling of what occurred, if you know what I mean. So, and I think my wife's exposure to the trial has been watching my videos. So I'm sure she has similar thoughts to all of you. Thank you, Dom's mom. Okay, let's see. Lathander Grauklinger. is back. Claire and Amy declared in another live stream some days ago that COS is used as cult of Scientology from now on. SPTV terminology. Yes, indeed. I got to tell you, Lathanda, I am not I'm not someone who has a problem saying Church of Scientology. I'm not someone who holds the word church as being some sacred word that must never be used by an organization not worthy of the name. I do not shy away from saying Church of Scientology. And I might actually shy away from saying cult of Scientology. Even though I do not shy away from saying Scientology is a cult. Anyway, I don't know. It's one of my things. It's one of my things. If I were a Scientologist and I was watching a channel and they just refused to ever say the word church, I would feel it was a little silly. Just me. And I don't think Claire and Amy have said, oh, don't use the word church. I'm just saying. Anyway, being too long-winded about it. Thank you, Lathonda. I appreciate it. Okay, let's see. Annette Jeanette. I want to know the goods on the Grant Cardone problems with your recent video about him. Oh, yes, Annette Jeanette. Annette Jeanette. Annette, I never know if I'm saying your last name correctly. It wasn't Grant Cardone directly who contacted me to take it down. It was, what is his name? Jonathan Bing, who is one of the guys who hosts these Clubhouse chat rooms where Grant Cardone likes to hang out. And he tried to say some nonsense. First of all, he tried to come and be like, I have officially submitted a complaint to YouTube. And I'm like, no, you didn't. Because if you did, I would have gotten an email about it. But he called, oh, here's what's funny. Mr. Jonathan Bing couldn't even figure out how to contact me directly personally. I guess he doesn't know how to look up my email address on the YouTube channel, growingupinScientology@gmail.com. I guess he couldn't find me on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, or he couldn't even look up my email address on the Aftermath Foundation website. He sent an email to contact@theaftermathfoundation.org. This guy emailed the blind email address for the Aftermath Foundation to ask me to take down my YouTube video of John Legere taking Grant Cardone behind the woodshed. And then he called the phone number for the Aftermath Foundation to leave a voicemail saying that I had violated his copyrights. And I'm thinking, then file a copyright claim with YouTube. So anyway, I ignored him for a few days. And then I actually called him back. So I'm like, let's just have a little bit of fun. And I said, Mr. Bing, you're all up in arms of this. You clearly don't understand, the fair use laws. And look, there's no reason for you to beg and plead me to take this down. If you really think I violated your copyright, file a complaint with YouTube. And he said, well, I've been trying to file a complaint with YouTube, but every time I log in, it's logged in under my daughter's account, and I haven't been able to figure out how to log out of her account and log into my account. And I'm thinking, so you can't figure out how to log into your YouTube account, but you're an expert on the YouTube copyright policies. I'm calling bullshit. So anyway, I said, look, if John Legere himself asks me to take this video down, I'll take it down. So the next day, Jonathan Bing emails me in a group text with John Legere. And he goes, I have John Legere here, and I have asked him to support me in my request to protect my copyright. Now, I'd already heard that John Legere was quite a fan of my video. And so John jumped in and he goes, hey, I support my friend in his request to protect his copyright. And I said, tough shit, I'm not taking the video down. And Mr. Bing said, are you not a man of your word, good sir? And I said, Mr. Bing, this isn't exactly what I had in mind when I said I would take the video down if John Legere wanted me to. By the way, John Legere is the famous, legendary CEO of T-Mobile. He's not the CEO anymore, but he was. And I said, I didn't mean... I said, John is just respect as a friend supporting you in your request. What I meant was that if John Legere was personally outraged that I had violated his privacy, that I would take the video down as a favor to him. I'm not taking it down as a favor to you or as a favor to Grant Cardone. So anyway, Mr. Bing decided to let it lie, if you will. Never ended up submitting any complaint to YouTube at all, which he's totally free to do, but I guess couldn't figure it out. And so I have text messages, I have an email, I have voicemails, and And if it's still interesting next week, then maybe I'll publish them just for pure entertainment, with everyone's contact information redacted, of course. So, and I have screenshots of Grant Cardone literally threatening people who posted my video to various social media platforms. So that would be interesting as well. I might publish that. Thank you, Annette. Okay, Patrick Rardon. TGIF. What a great way to end the week. I will get a great night's sleep, especially knowing that Danny can only try to sleep tonight. In jail. Indeed. Indeed. I hope I get some good night sleep, a good night's sleep tonight as well, because those have been eluding me the last couple nights. And I don't know. Do I look tired, guys? People in the comments have been telling me more and more lately that I look tired. You know, it's not nice to tell someone they look tired. All right, moving on. Okay, Robot Snot. COS stands for Cult of Scientology. Well, there you go, good sir. You said it, and so I said it too. AGF and Girly, AG Fangirly. AG Fangirly 36 is what I think that is. Normally, I'd say my birthday isn't that special, but hearing the verdict that day was the best present. Thank you for your coverage, Christina. Wow, it was your birthday? That is incredible. What an amazing birthday present. That's awesome. Thank you for the super chat, Christina. Okay, let's see. Chris Curtin, can public attend victim statements? See you soon. Chris, it is my belief that the public can attend victims' statements. There is no restriction on which members of the public can show up into a public courtroom, and those victim statements at the sentencing will be given in the courtroom. So yes, you can be there, and I guess I have to consider whether I want to be there as well. So what is it? It's either, I think it's August 14th. I saw another date somewhere of August 4th. Someone emailed me saying that the August 4th date is probably for some motions that need to be addressed. And I could have it wrong, but I think it was August 14th was going to be the next actual, sentencing. My understanding is that it was sentencing. But don't take my word for it. Everybody, fact check me on that, guys. Thank you, Chris. Always good to see you in the chat. Care for JC YT. Will they televise victim impact statements? No, there is no there. The answer is no, because of the Jane Doe. There's no cameras in that courtroom. The 9th floor of the Clara Shortridge Foltz Criminal Justice Center is a no camera floor. That's just the way it is. But hold on, that's the same floor that they had the Harvey Weinstein trial on. Wasn't the Harvey Weinstein trial televised? I'm totally confused. I'm also not entirely clear on whether, do they never televise trials that involve Jane Does? It's always been my understanding that the reason this trial was not televised is because it involves Jane Does as the primary reason, and that perhaps the secondary reason would just be the nature of the charges. But I don't know. I might have just been assuming that. I don't even know where they would have cameras in the courtroom. I'll have to check that out. Thank you for the super chat. L says, if people with disabilities are SPs, well, I didn't say SPs, but if people with disabilities are SPs, then doesn't that make Tom Cruise an SP? Dyslexia is a learning disability. You don't have to be an SP. I mean, I've told some anecdotes where a highly classed Scientology auditor was having to audit someone who had some severe physical deformities. And this is an auditor who had personally worked under L. Ron Hubbard for quite some time. Actually, his name was James Fuller. And he lost his temper at one point and said, why should I waste my time auditing this SP? I believe James Fuller's statements was partially in reference to the severity of this Scientologist's physical deformities. But there isn't some Scientology policy that says if you have a disability, you're an SP. I know a lot of Scientologists with disabilities. So I just want to set the record straight. And also dyslexia is not really considered a real thing in Scientology. So it wouldn't be considered a disability either. it would be considered a misdiagnosis. It would just be considered a manifestation of going past misunderstood words. So there you go. Thank you for the question, Al. I appreciate it. Dominique, hi, Aaron. I'm just here to say thank you. Well, thank you for joining and watching live and for the super chat. Red Tar for me. Always good to see you, Red Tar for me. Why so quiet for mainstream media on Masterson conviction? Red Tar for me, where you been? It's all over the news. It's all over the news. It's in Rolling Stone. It's in the LA Times. It's in the New York Times. It's in Variety. It's in the AP. It's being picked up absolutely everywhere. So yeah, no, it has not been quiet. It has been a waterfall of coverage. An avalanche is what I meant. An avalanche of coverage. Okay, Russ Hampton. How many Scientologists are actually in prison? Ooh, wow, that's a good question. I know, I don't know the number. I would guess less than 100. There's probably more Scientologists in prison for like fraud or non-payment of child support, or I don't know. Do you go to prison for that? Or do you just go to jail? I don't know. Rex Fowler is a Scientologist I personally know who is in prison for murder. We now have Danny Masterson, obviously. There's some high-profile examples of people who've already gotten out or are dead. Reed Slatkin is an example of someone. We have some Scientologists who are up-and-comers, future convicts. Someone like Grant Cardone, Gary Cardone. Who's the other guy? Oh, shit. There's a guy here in Clearwater. He's been indicted and arrested for running $1 billion. David Gentili. David Gentili is a Scientologist that we should expect to possibly be in prison sometime soon. Jay Spina. Jay Spina is a Scientologist who's in prison for defrauding Medicare, Medicaid. Riza Islam is someone who's probably going to go to prison soon for defrauding, Medicaid, Medi-Cal. I would say less than 100 is just my guess. It's not often in Scientology you hear of someone going to prison, but there we go. Thank you so much, Russ. Lisa Robinson. Hugs from Meshopin, PA. Oh, pronounce me shopping. Hugs from Meshopin, PA. Pronounce me shopping. Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. Thanks for joining me on the live stream, and thank you for the super chat. Cyber LA. Wonder if Bijou Phillips will stay with Danny while he is in prison. Is she still a Scientologist? If I had to guess, I would say there is 0 chance Bijou Phillips is staying with Danny Masterson while he's in prison for the next 20 years. Why would she? Why would she? I mean, the only reason I can think, come on, I don't want to oversimplify it, but up until now, he's been most likely the husband and the breadwinner and the provider. Any upside to being married to Danny Masterson has been flushed down the toilet at this point. I would argue it was flushed down the toilet a few years ago. But it's zero upside. And what, she's gonna wait for him? I mean, just wait. We don't even know. He could be going away so he's 47 years old. I'm guessing the judge gives him 50 or more years. Remember, it's minimum 15 years per charge. So 30 years. I come to understand there's some extenuating circumstances in play here. One of which is that best case scenario, he only has to serve 80% of his sentence. So if he gets the minimum of 30 years, he only has to serve 80% of that. I grew up in a cult. I don't know what 80% of 30 is. You guys are going to have to figure that out. But that's one number that would be his minimum years served. There's another number I've been given, which is that there's some law about the elderly parole law where if you're over 55 years of age and you've served 20 years consecutively, you're eligible for parole. So there might be some version of reality where Danny only serves 20 years. You waiting around for someone for 20 years? Hell no. Under no circumstances is she going to wait around. Yes, she is still a Scientologist. Now, will she continue to be? That's a good question. Probably. Okay, so I don't know. What are some reasons she might stay with Danny? Well, if Bijou is incapable of making a living herself, which I'm guessing might be the case, maybe she's planning on having to rely on Danny's family for financial support for the rest of her life. That would be a reason to stay with Danny, legally speaking. Okay, maybe she does a thing where they stay legally divorced, but she's off doing her own thing for the rest of her life. I don't know, guys. But anyway, those are all my thoughts on it. Thank you for the question, Cyber LA. Me says, when you were in Scientology, did you sign the quintillion year contract? And if so, how would you be expected to get a new body and carry on your work if you hadn't climbed up the bridge and gone clear? So the answer is yes. I was in the Sea organization. You signed the billion-year contract. And so there is a phrase, a concept in Scientology called competence is senior to case gain. And it is this strange idea. I only say strange, like if like I said earlier, if Scientologists were to allow themselves a little bit of time to think a little more deeply about some of these Scientology concepts than they're usually asked to, they would realize this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So Scientology tells you you are this natively immortal, all-powerful spiritual being, but because of sort of a cascading series of decisions you have personally made, you have given yourself amnesia of your true native godlike potential, and you have essentially handicapped yourself to no longer be all powerful so that you could have a game. And as a part of this whole thing, you've given yourself a reactive mind. I mean, you've created this thing for yourself called a reactive mind. And in order to regain one of the stepping stones, in order to regain your native godlike power, you have to get rid of this reactive mind. And then you've got to do other things. And in order to get rid of this reactive mind, you have to follow an exact series of steps, an exact procedure. And that's the only way to do it. Except there's a cheat code. All you have to do is rise above and make a decision and be tone 40 and be competent. And you can act as if you do not have a case or a reactive mind. It's sort of this silly thing. You have enough necessity level and all of the shackles you've given yourself, you can just casually discard them. So I will tell you that, dedicated staff members and Sea Org members, some of them maybe do spend a lot of time worrying about how am I going to skip the implant station and come back next lifetime if I don't get a lot of auditing. Some people might worry about that. My personal experience is more so that staff members who have adopted this just rise above. Competence is senior to case gain. We're on the business end of the E-meter. We're too busy getting the job done to let our cases get in the way. No case on post. My experience is that staff members and Sea Org members tend not to be too preoccupied about this idea of how am I going to come back if I haven't gone far enough up the bridge, because they think that they have just through sheer competence risen above the reactive mind and the case and the bank, which are all pretty much synonymous. But yeah, it's one of those things where you really shouldn't think about it too deeply. Because if Scientology really believed all of its own bullshit, the first thing it would do is get all of its staff members and Sea Org members up the bridge. And yet they don't. So there you go. Thank you, Mimi. Let's see. Can we please have some Goldie merch? I'd like a mug that says, "That's it, I'm telling Goldie." That's actually not a bad idea. I mean, that's a pretty inside joke, but I guess if you're familiar enough. So remember, the vast majority of people who watch the videos on my channel and all the other SPTV channels, they watch the replay. They don't watch the live streams. And the only way you're going to know who Goldie is if you are a frequent flyer in the live streams. Now, that we can still do the merch. I think it's hilarious and we should do it. But yeah, that is a super inside joke. But hell, let's do it. I think it's great. I think that's an awesome idea. Thank you for the idea, Marilyn. In fact, let me pull up my little notepad right now. Merch ideas. I'm telling Goldie. There we go. Consider it done. Thank you, Marilyn. Pete in Toronto. As of a live the other day, Claire and Amy have started to say COS as Cult of Scientology. There you go. I mean, guys, I tend to shorten it just to Scientology anyway and skip the CO. I'm a man. The fewer the syllables, the better. But yep, there you go. It seems like it has been decreed to be so, and so it is so. Thank you, Pete. John Sistowski again. It is spelled Sistovsky, but it's pronounced street performer Jazz Hansky. So do Scientology missions and orgs have handicapped parking spaces? Wow. That is a good question. So the answer for this is going to be yes, but just because that's the law. That is just the law. Now, if you have a completely privately owned parking spot, yeah, you still have to have If I mean it's a commercial property, even if it's totally privately owned, not on public property, you do have to have those handicap parking spaces. But you know what? I guarantee you, people park in them illegally. There you go. All right, next one. Rob Meehan. Have you ever heard the song Incurably Innocent by At the Drive-In? The singer is Chrissy's husband. Oh, it's Cedric. It deals with Scientology and Danny Masterson specifically. Even if the music isn't your thing, the lyrics are powerful. This must have been, I have seen clips of this going around the last several days. I have seen, I've been sent clips to videos of the song. I've seen the lyrics going around. See, At the Drive-In, I forget, is Cedric part of two bands? I know Cedric mostly as being associated with Mars Volta. Is he actually the singer for two different bands? So the real answer to your question is I'm not familiar with the song, but I've seen a ton of posts about it lately, so I'll have to check it out. Thank you for the super chat, Rob. Okay, Denise Locker. Now what can we do to find Shelly? Also, what case is next? Well, guys, all the videos about Shelly being missing do tell you where Shelly is. It's just the fact that she doesn't really have freedom of motion. She's not in touch with her family. Yeah, so anyway, there's that. Also, what case is next? The very next case is going to be Riza Islam. Riza Islam is a character who is both a Scientologist and a member of Louis Farrakhan's Nation of Islam. And the fraud that he is on going to trial for has to do with defrauding Medi-Cal regarding a Scientology purification rundown program that they were claiming to deliver, and they were charging for this thing and they weren't doing it. So that's the next one. There are other lawsuits coming, guys. There are other lawsuits that are, extant, currently existing. There is the trafficking lawsuit currently pending in Australia that has been ordered to arbitration. That order has been appealed and is pending appeal. And so there's a lot of things happening, but the very next thing, chronologically speaking, is going to be Riza Islam. Thank you for the super chat, Denise. Let's see. Metalhead. Hi, Aaron. What's happening with Mike? I haven't seen any update for a while. Did he blow? Oh, that's actually really funny. We should do some jokes about Mike having blown SPTV. But no. Mike's getting his cough treated. So that's what's going on. I think, guys, if you've been watching SPTV, Mike's been coughing for 6 months. So he's got to take a time out and get his cough treated. And that's what's going on. All right. So Magic Murr. Hi, AA Run. Thank you so much for the trial coverage. Looking forward to any future cases. Indeed. Thank you, Magic Murr. Okay. Tarkina Meyer. Tarkina, always so good to see you in here. If you could see if Neil deGrasse Tyson would come on with your friend who broke down the scientific fallacy in the Xenu story, not to debate religion, but to discuss the science impossibility. Tarkina, the problem here is that the Xenu story is part of what a normal religious academic person would consider Scientology's deeply held religious beliefs. So it's kind of like if you believe Jesus walked on water, then you can believe that Xenu was capable of faster than light travel. It's kind of like that. So I get what you're saying, but I think if Neil was sensitive to criticizing a religious story, that is what the Xenu thing is. The funny thing is that Scientologists don't consider it a religious story. They just consider it fact. But I guess most people believe their religious story is fact. See, I'm in a little over my head on this, and I don't love wading into a discussion of other religions or making comparisons, because I will tend to misspeak. So there you go. Look, I'll ask him. I just don't think he's going to come on. That's all. Okay, I'm going to skip repeat questions, guys, if you don't mind. Tanya T. It feels differently now than it used to watching Scientology. It really seems like their power is diminishing. It really does, doesn't it? And guys, this is only, Scientology has so much more to worry about than the Danny Masterson verdict. There is so much more coming. that poses an existential threat to Scientology and their tax exempt status. So stay tuned for all that. Okay, Chris Atkinson. Chris Atkinson. Love your channel. Do you know the rate that Scientology is shrinking based on the 35,000 estimate? Can we project when it will fail based on this? I do not have, my estimates do not include an actual calculation of the rate that it's diminishing. It should. It's not that deep. Like there's not a need to go into it that deeply, and I haven't gone into it that deeply. It depends, Chris, on how we define fail. Remember, as long as Scientology has its tax exempt status, you will never see Scientology sell or close a brick and mortar Scientology organization, other than some kind of fringe examples of closing down a celebrity center to combine it with its local org. So here's why I'm saying that. As long as they have their tax exempt status, they don't even pay property tax. They do not have to pay their staff. Their staff are all considered religious volunteers. They could not pay their staff. The only thing they're not exempt from is paying their utility bills. So in a certain sense, Scientology's operating expenses are the utility bills on about 150 different brick and mortar buildings around the world. Scientology makes enough interest on their cash on hand to pay those utility bills if they had to. Now, funnily enough, Scientology very often doesn't pay its utility bills, but that's because they don't spend money that they don't absolutely have to spend. And given this tax exemption and not having to pay your staff and not having to pay property taxes, if worst case scenario, all it takes is one person in each Scientology organization keep the lights on and the door open. I mean, all you need is the receptionist, really. You just need someone to guard that door and man that phone. And you could keep most of the lights off in the building. You could set the AC to 76 or 77, like a total animal. I keep my AC at 69 or 70. I can't stand anything warmer than that. But like, you see what I mean? Scientology will continue to exist as long as they have their tax exempt status. The conversation doesn't even begin. Like, who cares if they could be down to 300 members worldwide and those Scientology orgs will still be open. The conversation doesn't even really begin until the tax exempt status gets revoked. And that's when Scientology is really in trouble. So again, you're talking about the failure of the organization tied to its membership numbers. Whereas to me, the failure of the organization is really more tied to its cash on hand. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate the super chat. Lisa Marchbanks, Dragonfish Handmade Goods. Just rewatched your Conan. Conan exposed Danny Masterson's crimes video. Well, he has now been caught and incarcerated. Question: any update on the Baxter and Paris trial? So yes, thank you for mentioning the Conan thing. I actually forgot to put that on my list. I've been meaning to republish that video because it's so much more interesting now. So Conan O'Brien. The update, Lisa, you might have already heard me say it just a few minutes ago. The update on the Baxter Paris trial is they have been ordered to Scientology internal arbitration. That decision has been appealed. Now, normally you can't appeal a decision until the case is over. And in the Baxter Paris case, the case has not been closed. The case has sort of is on hold pending the result of the arbitration. So technically, there's nothing to appeal. There's no final decision to appeal yet. But an appeal has been submitted anyway based on, and there's some legal maneuvering involved in it. It is currently waiting for a response to the appeal of the decision to go to arbitration. That's exactly where it stands. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, Lori Plays. Can you clarify how dead booking, it's called dead filing. Can you clarify how dead filing is different from being declared a suppressive person? Also, any idea why the two Mastersons were given this status? Dead filing in Scientology, strictly speaking, according to the policy, is when a Scientologist sends in a hostile or antagonistic communication to the local Church of Scientology, right? Like if you call the receptionist and you're hostile and antagonistic, or you send in a letter and you're hostile and antagonistic, you're simply supposed to be put in the dead file. And the dead file means We do not originate communications to this person. We do not send them mail. We do not send them letters. We do not send them promo. It's not the same thing as being declared a suppressive person, because you're actually still allowed to come into the org. They're just not allowed to send you anything. It's kind of a weird thing. And being dead filed has nothing to do with Scientologists being ordered to disconnect from you. Being dead filed is just a very, very specific thing. It means we don't send this person shit anymore, but they're still allowed to be a Scientologist. They're still allowed to come in. They're still allowed to be connected to Scientologists. It's just a strange thing. It's this weird, quirky thing that exists. For a celebrity to be dead filed, I've simply never heard of that before. But Danny and his sister Alana were both dead filed at least 2 years ago, and that's something that was just learned this week by highly placed inside internal Scientology leaker. Thank you for the question, Lori. I'm curious what you have learned about yourself and how you have grown as a human as a result of covering the trial. Grown as a human. Objection, leading the witness. Let me see. One thing I learned about myself, or was reminded about myself, is that there are some things about Scientology that, when they are discussed, affect me deeply emotionally for reason that I was unaware of. I just remember there was a part of the testimony. It was Jane Doe 3, and Jane Doe 2, and Jane Doe 1, where they start talking about certain parts of Scientology that just, I start getting really emotional. Sort of coming to terms with how fundamentally abusive some of these policies and concepts are, that while I was, right in the thick of it, dealing with it, knowing full well what the policies are, believing in them, believing they were correct, it had never entered my consciousness that these were deeply fundamentally destructive, damaging, and abusive practices. And there's something about hearing them discussed in a non-Scientology environment in front of a bunch of non-Scientologists that sort of, maybe those circumstances is what sort of gives me the space needed to go, not to even think, but just to experience, have the freedom, the calmness of mind, or whatever, a different perspective, that it hits me differently, where it's just sort of hitting me how freaking horrible it is. And it's happened before. The first time I watched Going Clear, some of the stories weren't even from a Scientology perspective that out there. And yet seeing them on screen in a format that was outside of the Scientology bubble just hit me so hard. Yeah. Now, as far as grown as a human, I mean, that's a really loaded and leading question, but I'll take it. I'll play. I think it has. As a human, I think is a. I don't necessarily agree with the phraseology, but what it means to me, what that part of the question means to me, is coming to terms, like truly accepting, in a different way than what I just described, but truly accepting how even policies in Scientology, even policies that may not fundamentally be harmful and abusive, like meaning you could use them in a good way if you wanted to, are still used by the Scientology authorities, whether we're talking about David Miscavige or ethics officers or chaplains or sect checkers or whatever, in just horribly abusive ways to protect the organization, and how the organization does not value individuals. It does not value individuals. It does not value society. It has no interest in protecting society. It has no interest in the rule of law. It is only interested in self-preservation. And yeah, that's my answer to the question. Thank you, Gia. John Sostovsky. It is spelled Sostowski, but it's pronounced shit for brainski. Oh, so don't be the last one to leave. Contact the Aftermath Foundation today. Indeed. All right, let's see. Asher Coben. What happened to updates on the current goings on in the Sea Org? I thought you mentioned this a few weeks ago about the recent culture from someone saved by the Aftermath Foundation. I do not know what you mean. What happened to the updates on the current goings on in the Sea Org? I thought you mentioned this a few weeks ago about the recent culture from someone saved by the Aftermath. I have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, yeah, I don't know what you mean. Was there some update that we were supposed to give that we didn't? I feel like we share everything there is to share for the most part, that we can. So I think the part of your question that I'm not getting is it seems like something was promised that wasn't delivered. I just don't know what you mean, Asher. I apologize. Let's see. How do I say this? Oh, Data Chick Atlanta. Did you see the interview with Claire on News Nation at the 420 mark? Interviewer says she was fair gamed. Yes. Okay. You're talking about Ashley Banfield. Indeed. We addressed that earlier on in the chat, so I won't revisit it right now, but 100%. Some craziness. Scientology, crazy gonna crazy. Yeah. All right, let's see what's next. Stranger Than Fiction, Ken's channel. Ken, good to see you again. Stranger Than Fiction here in chat. Oh, Stranger Than Fiction here in the chat made a good point. Danny's DNA now gets collected into CODIS. What if they found another unsolved case that pointed to Danny? Yes. Yes, indeed. Guys, there's no way we just so happened to have heard from all of the Danny Masterson victims that exist. I was talking to my friend about this today. Consider this, guys. Danny Masterson was a not ugly, rich celebrity. This guy didn't need to be drugging and raping. I mean, I don't mean to imply that anyone needs to be, but you guys know what I mean. This guy did not need to be doing what he was doing. And he did it anyway, over and over and over. That's how you know this is a sick man. I mean, this is a deeply disturbed individual. He did it over many years. Scientologists, non-Scientologists, United States, Canada. You telling me he didn't go down to Mexico and do this? I mean, we have probably only seen the tip of the iceberg of Danny Masterson victims. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if some of those, and you know, like the victim in Canada, she didn't even know who Danny Masterson was. Maybe there are a bunch of women who he did this to who had no idea who he was, and they did go to the authorities, and they did get the medical examination that would have collected DNA evidence. And yeah, wow, that's a great point. Thanks for mentioning that, Ken. Okay, Stacy. Will there ever be a legal loophole for Nicole and Katie to be able to finally speak out? Stacy, remember, there's two different worlds. There's the world, there's the civil action world, and there's the criminal world. There's nothing for them to speak out about. Like there's no crimes that we know of for them to speak out about. It would only be abusive behavior or the craziness. I guess what I'm saying is no one thinks that Tom Cruise like beat Nicole and Katie or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Those guys are wrapped up. Let's just say that they're wrapped up with NDAs, ironclad NDAs, and they've received a shit ton of money to make those NDAs enforceable. The only legal loophole would be if they were to speak about a crime. There's nothing that can prevent someone who's even signed a confidentiality agreement. There's nothing that can prevent someone from cooperating, legally prevent someone from cooperating with a criminal investigation. And other than that, I don't know, am I saying a lot of words just to say no? I wouldn't expect there to be any legal loophole. But I'll tell you what, maybe this would be a loophole. There's no way Surrey Cruz is contractually prevented from speaking out about anything. Maybe that's a question I can ask my lawyer friend Zach. Like, no, Surrey Cruz as a minor, when Katie left Tom, would not have been capable of entering into some contractual agreement to never speak out about Tom. So, is it possible that Surrey, as an adult, could do her own little tell-all? I would have to guess yes. But that's a little different than what you asked. So there we go. Thank you, Stacy. Backgoat, good to see you, Backgoat. Welcome to the French Dip family. Reminder, Osa, email me for French Dip when you get out. Very nice. Okay, let's see. Moving on up. Okay, with Danny Masterson's conviction, where is Danny on the tone scale according to Scientology? That's not really how the tone scale works. So in Scientology, they would say that someone has a social tone and a chronic tone. Your social tone is just, somebody puts on a happy face and is just interacts with people at a particular tone level. The social tone is more like your real tone level when no one's looking. I guess what I'm saying is a conviction does not change someone's tone level. Now, someone might say that if they want to really accept, really own the fact that he really did do these things, maybe they would say his tone level is anger or hostility or I feel like anger or hostility. I think hostility is 1.9. I think anger is 1.5 on the tone scale. Some shit you just can't forget, you guys. Thank you for the question. Stephanie Sandoval. Would Danny Masterson ever be caught alone? Oh, I think you mean David Miscavige. Would David Miscavige ever be caught alone, or does he always have security? Miscavige, especially if he's traveling, if he's at a different base. If you mean Miscavige, he's always got security with him. If you mean Masterson, he doesn't have security with him. He could be caught alone. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's see. Stacy. Another question. Why hasn't the FBI raided this cult yet? Well, Stacy, I got good news for you. The FBI has raided Scientology. It is that raid that caused Mary Sue Hubbard, L. Ron Hubbard's wife, and 10 other high-level Scientologists to go to prison. Now, if you mean why hasn't the FBI raided this cult again, that is because the IRS gave them their tax exemption back in 1993. And it is that religious protection that, for the most part, prevents the FBI from raiding them. Now, an FBI raid is Scientology's worst nightmare. Well, next to a grand jury investigation. Well, no. FBI would be the worst nightmare. Grand jury investigation would be the second worst nightmare. The FBI would raid Scientology if they weren't afraid of the consequences. But there is a grand jury investigation going on. So Scientology has that to worry about. Thank you very much, Stacy. Chow Yun Smut. That is a funny ass name. Davey Minicabbage claims that Scientology cured his asthma. Is that how he can chain smoke Camel unfiltered all the time? I rolled my eyes so hard that I think I sprained an orbital muscle. Yeah, I think it's Claire and other people who've worked at the Scientology International base have said he actually, I hope I'm recalling this correctly, it might have even been either a Gary Jackson Moorhead who said, anyway, it could have been one of a dozen people, that he actually had a bottle of oxygen under the desk or in his office because guess what? Scientology didn't cure his asthma. He still has asthma. It's just part of the story that he tells. And it's weird. That's not even a story he tells in Scientology. He doesn't want anyone to know that he has asthma. That's just the story that he told to the press when David Miscavige was still not afraid of talking to the press. He would tell this story on how he came to experience, have a subjective reality on the workability of Scientology as a young child because it cured his asthma. Never cured his asthma. Thank you, Chow Yun Smut. Diminutive Miscavige, thank you for the super sticker. Rachel, XOXO UK. Does Scientology ever get prosecuted for harassing SPs? Well, prosecuted, no, because they use licensed private investigators. And licensed private investigators have more latitude legally in how they are able to, the conduct that a licensed private investigator is able to engage in would be considered stalking or harassment if done by a non-licensed private investigator. And so that is why Scientology uses private investigators. So yeah, they don't get prosecuted for that kind of stuff. Thank you, Rachel. Kara Linehan. Carol Linehan. 1 DM down, 1 to go. I like that. In fact, that is going on my merch idea list. 1 DM down, 1 to go. Oh my God, I love it. That's great. Thank you, Kara. Grounded in grace. Strange how when bad things happen to Scientologists, it's because they pulled it in. But when things happen to Scientology, it's the fault of evil people. Exactly. 100%. That's how David Miscavige thinks about himself too. If something bad happens to him, it's your fault. If something bad happens to you, it's your fault. Don't think about it too deeply. What's this? Here's $5 towards Goldie's coffee fund. We love her. You will all be thrilled to know that I finally this week sent Goldie all of the super chats that you guys have sent me on her behalf. I just estimated what it might be, and then I doubled it because she's been working so damn hard. She deserves every penny of it. So there you go. I'll add this to Goldie's coffee fund. Very nice. Thank you, Lily Rose. Okay, Selena Michelle finally caught alive. So happy for everyone. Thank you for all of your coverage. Well, thank you. Thank you for watching, and thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Okay, Warren Rice. Outstanding coverage, AA run. Do you think that inmate Masterson might start naming names and flip on people that might have been aware of what he was up to? Yes, I do. And actually, I have to add this as I'm sitting right here to my list of videos to do. Danny Masterson rolling over on people, and not just his roommate Bubba. Danny Masterson could really start spilling the tea. This guy, I did talk about this with either John Poe or my lawyer friend Zach. You're not allowed to make money off of committing a felony. So if Danny Masterson, I realized I got onto a different train of thought than what you're asking about. I started getting into writing a book, doing a tell-all expose, interviews, all this kind of stuff. But that's not really what you're talking about. You're just talking about naming names and flipping on people. So look, for him to actually flip on people and name names, there'd have to be something for him to benefit from. So if I believe if there was some way that naming names was going to result in less prison time for him, then yes, he would do it. I have been led to believe up until now that there really is nothing he can do to lessen his prison. Whatever Judge Almeida gives him for his sentence is a sentence. He can't start cooperating now to get less time. That opportunity went out the window when the jury came back with their verdict. So what am I talking about? What I'm talking about him doing is more like, writing books, blaming Scientology. And then, but then the question enters in, okay, but he'd have to be careful about what he wrote, because you can't write a book. You're not allowed to make money. You're not allowed to profit off of the commission of a felony. So he can't write a book about everything he did and then just to name names, just to sell a book and make money, because I think that money would go to his victims. So I've sort of contradicted myself here, and I've kind of come 360 and contradicted my original answer. I still believe there is a scenario where Danny Masterson starts doing some version of, if I'm going down, I'm taking as many of y'all with me as I can. I just don't know exactly what it looks like, but I feel like that is exactly what we should expect from Danny Masterson. So we'll see. Lisa Robinson, great job with pronouncing my hometown. Thank you, Lisa. I do try. I grew up in a cult, but generally speaking, I have a pretty good handle on how to pronounce things. I do my best. I guess you can see I'm less good with names than I am with places. Okay. Asher Coben, David versus Danny in a cell. Who gets buggered first? Oh, yikes. I don't know. Coin toss on that one, Asher. Melody Key. First super chat. Just wanted to say hi from the UK and thank you for everything you do. Thank you so much, Melody. Thank you for joining the chat. I hope doing a live stream at this slightly earlier hour made it easier for folks in the UK to join. And thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Okay. Anno. Oh, how do we say this? Oh, Anonymous. Oh my God, that's hilarious. I absolutely love that. Anonymous. Some states require wealthy inmates to reimburse the state during their incarceration. I'm not sure if California does, but it could cost Danny Masterson $20,000 plus every single year. Wow. I haven't even heard that mentioned as a possibility. That would be fascinating. I have a whole list here of questions to ask my lawyer friend, Zach. Danny Masterson reimbursing state. I'll ask him about that. Thank you, Anonymous. And I love your name. Andrew Swaney. Does Scientology block certain cable internet on members? So Scientology used to have what they called the Net Nanny. It was a CD-ROM that Scientologists had to load into their computers and upload or download the thing to their actual their computer that would censor all of the internet traffic so that nothing could no sensitive Scientology words would ever appear. They don't have anything. And first of all, they don't actually have that anymore. They don't have the Net Nanny anymore. They also don't have a way to censor cable television channels. So I guess the short answer is no. Now on Sea Org bases, they do have internet filters. What they don't have is the Net Nanny thing that Scientologists are required to install on their personal devices. But the Wi-Fi, the internet Wi-Fi networks on Scientology Sea Org bases do have the filters that prevent any of the Scientology stuff coming through. Thank you for the question, Andrew. Let's see. DNV. Aaron, did you get my message on Facebook? I wouldn't know, because unless your name on Facebook is DNV, I have no way of knowing who you are, DNV. And I get hundreds of messages on Facebook. So if you tell me who you are, I can answer the question. But if you don't, then I can't. Thank you very much. And I believe on Facebook, you actually have to use a first and last name. So I haven't seen any messages come through from a DNV. Okay, so I'm going to assume these are your initials. Your first name is D. Your last name is V. And I would have to go back and look. So I'll let you know. Thank you for the super chat. Let's see. Oh, LSG. Hey, Aaron, I need some important advice. Should I go to Kohl's after work today for a French dip? 100%. 100% you should. Get the French dip. Get the USDA prime beef. I forget what it said. I think prime beef. And I personally recommend the macaroni and cheese. Was there another side that I got? Was it just the macaroni and cheese? I can't remember, but I remember the macaroni and cheese is really good. There you go. I hope that advice was helpful. And they don't actually open until 4 p.m. I learned that as well. They don't open until 4. Okay, let's see. What does this say? Chaya fabulosis. If you're not going to invite the chat to your Los Angeles party, we at least deserve a new Tampa Brad video. As of right now, guys, I do not actually know if there is going to be a party for me to fly in for. I spoke to Jane Doe 1 and Leah, and I got the impression there may not be a whole thing actually scheduled. Now, there is, like, if I were to go out to California, there is a whole party that could be had, even if Leah and the Jane Does weren't there. And anyway, it's all up in the air. All I'm saying is there's nothing scheduled. But yes, I will get around to doing a new Tampa Brad video, Chaya. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, what is this one? What is this? Monarchic? M.A. Narchick. Monarchic Drake. How do the wealthiest Scientologists continue to believe? Is it strength of Hubbard indoctrination, potential loss of business if they refuse to believe, or something else? It's very hard to explain. It's hard to understand if you haven't been in that situation yourself. First of all, the amount of money that you have has nothing to do with your likelihood of continuing to believe what Scientologists believe. In fact, if you are someone who became wealthy while in Scientology, you might even be more inclined to believe the stuff and continue to believe this stuff because you've been convinced that Scientology is what caused you to succeed. If you were wealthy when you joined Scientology, then the question really is, how are those people, what is it that causes those guys to believe in the first place? But again, I guess what I'm saying is the premise of the question that somehow their financial status has some impact on their likelihood or lack thereof of continuing to believe in Scientology. It's actually a non-factor. And the lower levels of Scientology are structured in a way where it doesn't feel like indoctrination. It doesn't feel like religion. It feels like motivational self-help. It feels like the unreligion. It feels like something new, something fresh. And there's like a I hesitate to use the word brainwashing because it's such like a sort of almost meaningless and kind of inflammatory word. But that being said, there's a very much a self brainwashing aspect to Scientology. And that's the best way I can describe it for right now. Okay. Pat Shore, pronounced shore, like down by the shore. Just wanted to be part of the name game. Love it. Thank you, Pat. Marilyn Honig. Oh, I use COS because of super chat character limits. That makes sense. That never even occurred to me. Oh, you know why it never occurred to me? Because the way I abbreviate Scientology is SCN. That's how I abbreviate Scientology. And, same thing as COS, but now I get it. Yep. Thank you for pointing that out, Marilyn. Okay, what is this? Fat Cat's Heaven. That's Fat Cat's Heaven. You were the one who is a former int staff, right? You escaped from the RPF back in 1982, right? Did I remember that? See, I grew up in a cult, but I remember some things. Crowdfund buses wrapped in Aftermath Foundation logo to circle Scientology orgs 24/7 to help with staff exodus. That would be really funny. Good one. Okay. Let's Bonnie Morris. Thank you so much. Art Lover. My husband ran a San Francisco halfway house. It's pitiful and sad watching the old inmates try to re-enter phones, cars, etc. Oh, you're talking about like actual people coming out of prison. Yeah. I can only imagine how tough that would be. Thank you for the super chat, Art Lover. Okay, Michelle Mish says, what if we got Where is Shelley trending on all social media? Everyone on a set day starts saying it and go on every day forward. Wouldn't that cause pressure on Scientology? I mean, it would just cause some bad PR. It wouldn't cause any actual pressure. I mean, I'll tell you my opinion, my belief on this based on the facts that have been presented and shared, even on Leah Remini's television program. And I hope everyone's clear on this. The authorities have made contact with Shelley. I if you're wondering whether she's dead, she's not dead. The police have in the past made contact with Shelley. There would be no reason for Scientology to cover up. If Shelley Miscavige had died from some illness or cancer or whatever, there would be absolutely no reason for Scientology to cover that up. And there's actually no historical precedent of Scientology covering up the death of a Sea Org member like that. Even what is her name? Even Annie Broker. Annie Broker is what I know her as. She has had some other, she's known by some other names by other people. Even Annie Broker, who is one of the two people that was supposed to take over Scientology from L. Ron Hubbard, when she died, Scientology did not cover that up. So, oh, by the way, John Oliver, the British host of the show Last Week Tonight or something like this. I think he got Where is Shelley trending on Twitter at one point. John Oliver is always making jokes about Where is Shelley. And actually, I mean, I think this would be a lot of fun. Like maybe this is something that SPTV should do. We should like give it like a 1 week notice or a 2 week notice and schedule a day and a time for as many SPTV viewers as possible to tweet as many times as possible on a given day. Hashtag where is Shelly? That would actually be time well spent. Someone should do something about that. Thank you, Michelle. Bonnie Morse, will you return for sentencing? I'm guessing no. You guys have to understand that there's no added value for me being there in person. There is when we're talking about testimony, right? Like if we're getting a lot of testimony, there's a lot of value in me being there in person so I can report on what's being said and how it's being said. But when it comes just to just straight, just information, there's literally no reason for me to be there in person. It's almost better if I'm not, because then I can more easily do videos from the comfort of my space, and I can do it faster. If I'm in court, I can't just get up and do a video about breaking news, but I can if I'm here. So that's why I will not be returning for sentencing. Plus, the Jane Does will be there for sentencing, and they're just going to call me when they get out of court and tell me what happened anyway. So there we go. Thank you, Bonnie. Robotic person. After English, most spoken language from Scientologists. At this point, Russian. I might have said Spanish, because between there's a lot of orgs in Mexico and South America, so you combine that with the orgs that are in Spain, and Spanish is probably the second most. I would have said Spanish historically, but so many Scientologists are Russian or Ukrainian or whatever, Eastern European, the Baltic states and stuff. I know they don't all those countries don't all speak Russian, but my answer is a toss up between Spanish and Russian. How's that? Okay. Witch Bella, greetings from Austin, Texas. Wishing wellness and strength to all the women who experience sexual assault, including myself. And you, lovely soul, I'm an ex-Mormon who enjoys your channel. That is amazing. It's so amazing. It made my light go out just now. Witch Bella, I'm so sorry to hear that you experienced that. And wow, and you're an ex-Mormon. How about that? Hey, if you ever want to talk about, no, the Mormons get all upset when I talk about Mormonism. I can't do that. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for your super chat. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad you enjoy the content that I put out, even though you are not a former Scientologist. That's one of the cool things. Guys, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to swap the battery out on this light. BRB. Uh-oh, that one doesn't want to work either. Crikey. Bada bang. All right. Thank God I'm wearing pants, right? All right. That was exciting. Thank you, Witch Bella. What is next? Merch idea from Love It. I'm a never in with the SPTV logo. I like that. Let me do it. I'm a never in with the SPTV logo. Bada boom. It's a done. Darlene, how likely can he win an appeal and walk? I'm going to say 1%, only because it's more prudent than saying 0. I think there's no chance, but let's just say 1%. 3%, 5%. Does that make me sound more fair? I think the real answer is 0, in my personal opinion. LM says, I think Jeff Augustine said that Vicky Podboreski is up next week in court, and he was going. Someone said the civil case, Jane Doe 123, is soon. The civil case will resume shortly. There will be even more cases coming. There is an evidentiary hearing that will be held on the 7th. I believe the 7th is next Wednesday. And Vicky Podboreski might be there, but she doesn't have to be there. And that hearing is determined who leaked the discovery file to Vicky Podboreski. So the court is more concerned with who did the leaking and not as concerned with who received the leak. We already know Vicky Podboreski is the one who received the leak, and she is not ordered to appear at the hearing. I predict she might be there anyway, though. So thank you for that, LM. Okay, Destiny Salazar, other than spending time with the family, do you have anything that you love to do just for you? Yes. I love to go on roller coasters. I live about 45 minutes from Busch Gardens, and I have the annual pass, and I have the annual go to the front of the line pass. They call it the Quick Queue Pass. They're ridiculously expensive, but I like roller coasters to a ridiculous amount. I love free fall. So I will literally on my own as a grown ass man with kids just go by myself to Busch Gardens when they open and go on as many roller coasters as I can for 2 hours and then come home. I'll be like, hey, kids, anyone want to come? No, bye. I'm going by myself. And that is my idea of a good time. It really is the thing I enjoy more than almost anything is going on roller coasters. And I've been skydiving. I've done about 25 jumps myself. And the last jump, I almost died. And I said, I'm good on that. And from that day on, it was roller coasters for me. Thank you, Destiny. Michelle McIntosh. Hi, Aaron from Australia. I just want to say thank you for your coverage of the trial. Being able to watch you was the only way to get the best information and understandable. Thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle. I really appreciate that. That really is what made covering the trial worth it for me, is how much value people seem to get from the reporting. So I really do appreciate it. Pat O, when Sunset Diner, I will make you a blueberry cobbler. I'm not sure I understand completely. Now, by the way, the restaurant I mentioned earlier was the Sunset Grill. It's not the Sunset Diner. But do you work? Do you work at the Sunset Grill? Is that what you're saying? Because otherwise, I'm not totally sure what you're saying. But thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Andrew Swaney. If anything happened to David Miscavige, would that end Scientology or would someone take over? Oh, no. Someone else would take over and it would probably honestly be a little better to be. Yeah. David Miscavige does not actually personally, his existence, his presence is not what motivates or inspires Scientologists to keep on doing Scientology or Scientology staff members to keep doing their jobs. Not at all. So if he died, someone else would take over. Everything would continue on. And again, things would honestly probably get a little better because Miscavige is such a little psycho that almost anyone else would be better. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, TCH. There is so much abusive behavior in Scientology. How long did it take you after getting out to no longer expect it or even mimic that trained behavior? Oh, I think there's aspects of it that I still mimic. I am so sometimes quick to, like, if I ask something to be done, like, how, like, I'm talking about, like, in the house, family stuff. If I ask a question or I ask for something to be done, it's just so burned into my soul. My expectation is that the response is supposed to be instant. And it's very hard for me not to be annoyed when the response isn't instant. Now, my job is to just manage my own responses and an annoyance level, but it is so deeply baked into me that the only correct response is an instant response. I can't get rid of that. I've just been completely unable to shake that. I'm a very impatient person. I am an unusually impatient person. I think that is fair to say. Let me see. Was there any other parts of this question? So much abusive behavior to no longer expect it. It's funny. I don't expect to be treated abusively, at least not that I'm aware of. That might require some soul searching. Or mimic that trained behavior. Okay, I think I answered that one. Thank you, TCH. I appreciate it. Obi O'Brien. If Dinky Dave contacted the Aftermath Foundation asking for help, would you? I mean, if you're talking about David Miscavige, it's just like an unrealistic question. Like, David Miscavige wouldn't need help leaving Scientology, so there'd be nothing to help. It's not like anyone by definition is disqualified. Like, if a Scientologist of any variety needs help leaving Scientology in any variety, everything's on a case-by-case basis. There's no automatic disqualification. If you're a Scientologist and you need help leaving Scientology, you technically qualify, but it's all dictated by the circumstances. I think that's a good answer. I think I addressed the question, right? Okay, let me see. Bryce and Eve in New Zealand. Bryce and Evie? Evie. Hey, Aaron, you should have 2 emails from me regarding a directory of SPTV channels on YouTube. I am happy to do it for you guys. Yes, I recall seeing some emails about that in the last 24 hours. So I'll definitely take a closer look at that and I'll get back to you for sure. Thank you, Bryce. I appreciate it. SPT Scott. Scientology took a major blow to the gut and they can't respond. More to come. The knockout blow will come when the tax exemption is removed. I hear taps playing, and I absolutely love it. Yes, indeed. I love it too. I mean, they have responded. They've responded in some ridiculous ways already, and they probably will continue to do so. Okay, Valerie Boljak says Scientology denies fair game, and then fair game's a newscaster. Talking about Scientology, talk about Scientology giving out more rope to hang them with. I know, right? That's what I mean. It's like they really can't help themselves. Uh-oh. All right. Don't try to sneak something in here that's gonna mess with me. I know what you mean when you say certain things about Scientology surprisingly affecting you. There's something about hearing your trauma discussed by others. To people who haven't experienced it, I have dealt with the same feeling. Yes, that's actually what it is. And not quite realizing that it was trauma. That's actually what I meant. Like when I hear something discussed and I'm like, this shouldn't be traumatic for me. This shouldn't be traumatic for me. And you realize it is. Yes, that's a very good description of it. Okay, Celeste Commodore. If KJ's, okay, so you're talking about, this is Kathleen in Canada. If KJ's police investigation goes to trial, will you come to Toronto to cover? Oh boy, I mean, if that does, I would. I did receive an email from someone explaining to me why Danny Masterson would never be sent out of the U.S. criminal justice system to go face trial in Canada. What would happen, especially since there's no trial statute of limitations on this thing in Canada, is that if he were charged or whatever, that charge or that case, whatever the right language to use is, would simply be kept open until the day comes that Masterson, if he ever gets paroled, he could then be extradited to Canada for trial. But as long as he is incarcerated, he will not be sent to Canada to stand trial. So there you go, Celeste. Thank you so very much. My dog has no nose says merch idea. My AA team and Claire Bears and Cracker Lickers. Yes. I have AA team shirts in my merch store already. I know Mark has a lot of Cracker Licker merch. I don't know if they have Claire Bear merch up there, but if they don't now, I'm sure they soon will. Thank you. My dog has no nose. Jody with a super sticker. Thank you so much. Janet Cheney, any feedback from Mr. Cruz? Thank you for all your time away from your family to inform and, dare I say, entertain. Yes, I like to consider that what I offer here is infotainment, edutainment, something in between. We haven't heard a peep from Mr. Cruz, and I don't think we would. See, Tom Cruise is smarter than the Church of Scientology, because Tom Cruise is smart enough to keep his mouth shut on anything to do with this, and Scientology is not. Thank you, Janet Cheney. Denise Locker, when will Claire talk about the trial? Actually, now that the trial is officially over, probably any day now. You know what I mean? She did talk about it by going on Ashley Banfield's show. And she and Amy might have already talked about it as well. But, I'm sure you'll be hearing more about that, is my guess. So, okay, how do you say this? Cattle Ranch? Okay, Irvine Cattle Ranch. Do you think David Miscavige believes in Scientology, or does he believe in power? Believing in power is a very good way to describe it. The other way I've answered this question is, I believe David Miscavige believes in Scientology, but in a different way than your average normal Scientologist. I believe that he believes in some of the fundamental principles of Scientology, such as we're all immortal spiritual beings. Except he doesn't believe the bullshit about L. Ron Hubbard. He probably thinks that he's been having to clean up L. Ron Hubbard's mess ever since L. Ron Hubbard died, or even before that. Because, the last 6 years of L. Ron Hubbard's life, David Miscavige was one of the people assigned to, I think they call it the All Clear Project, to get rid of all the legal threats against L. Ron Hubbard so that he could come back and officially resume control of Scientology. So even the last 6 years of L. Ron Hubbard's life, Miscavige was doing nothing but cleaning up L. Ron Hubbard's messes. And then L. Ron Hubbard dies. Miscavige finds out there's no OT 9 and 10. Now Miscavige really has a mess on his hands. So I think he believes in his own way. But I do think he believes. I know you'll get a lot of different answers on this to this question from different people, but that's how I see it. Thank you very much. Lynn Dunnigan Little. Why hasn't a Sea Org member who wants to leave used the courts to sue Scientology for violating their constitutional rights? Love the work you do. Okay, the question has a premise that is a problem. If you are a current Sea Org member, you wouldn't even dream of suing Scientology. Only a former Sea Org member would consider suing Scientology. And by suing Scientology for trafficking, you are saying they violated your constitutional rights. And people have sued for that and are currently suing for that. So I think that is the answer. Thank you, Lynn. Heather Core. At Pinellas Park Christmas Parade, a group of immigrants were handing out the truth about drugs. Well, how do you know they were immigrants? How do you know they were immigrants? I mean, unless you spoke to them and they all had heavy, like accents, maybe. A group of immigrants, that's a funny way to put it. We're handing out truth about drugs, and I wondered if Scientology targets that population like Herbalife has. Scientology doesn't really target any population. They all they care about is statistics. The people who are handing out promo have statistics of number of promo pieces handed out. They don't really care who takes them. It could be homeless people. They don't really care if people even come in from the promo. Their job is to hand out a certain amount of promo and to report back that they handed out the promo. That is all they care about. They just truly don't really target populations. They think everyone on planet Earth should get into Scientology. I can tell you that in all my time in Scientology, I never witnessed or experienced or any sort of targeting of certain populations, other than like dentists and chiropractors. And those guys were targeted by Scientology's business consulting front groups. So there you go. Thank you, Heather Core. Okay. Seeker 0628, just enabling Goldie's coffee addiction. Excellent. John, I'm going to get this. DeBenedette. John DeBenedette. Help grand jury nail Scientology for cigarettes and privileges. Cigs and privileges. I don't know what this means. I'm just going to be honest with you here. Help grand jury nail Scientology for cigs and privileges. All right. I'll take your word for it. Sounds good to me. Oh boy, this is going to be okay. Sex offenders can't go to churches. Oh, really? I didn't know that. Sex offenders can't go to churches. When he gets out in 30 years and no orgs for him if Scientology keeps religious status, what about missions? That's totally above my pay grade. I have no idea. I didn't know there was such a rule. That's actually fascinating to even think that could apply to a Scientology org is something that's just never occurred to me. This is news to me. That's incredible. Oh, let me write that down on my questions for my lawyer friend, Zach. Questions for my lawyer friend, Zach. SA offenders not allowed to go to churches. That's incredible. Okay. Oh, I see. DNV. Aaron, it's Dominica Minka, and it was private. Okay, I'll take a look. Dominica Minka. Thank you so much. Mushka here. Mushka. Hi from Belgium. If Miscavige was ever incarcerated, would Scientology continue the way it is now, and who would possibly take over? It has been said by others that the most likely person to take over if something happens to Miscavige is actually Shelley Miscavige. So that's my answer as well. And yes, Scientology would continue the way it is now, although I do argue that almost literally anybody else taking over would probably result in some possibly kinder, gentler version of Scientology coming into being. That's my best guess. Thank you, Mushka. Oh my God, Pat Broker. So funny. I will be joining SPTV once the channels are all St. Hill size and there are 10 billion in Aftermath reserves. All right, well, we're halfway there, Pat. We're halfway there. So I look forward to seeing you on SPTV shortly. I love it. Jonesy, could you give an update on Marty Rathbun? Nothing to update. Marty did a deal with the devil a number of years ago to do Scientology, do David Miscavige's dirty bidding for him once again. And that's what he does. He's been a little quiet lately, but he's still there. Yeah, that's the only update. There's just no new news, Jonesy. Paula Puffer, Shelley Miscavige birthday game. Interesting. I don't know when Shelley Miscavige's birthday is, but I'm sure some other people do. And what game shall we play? What game shall we play? I don't know. I know a lot of former Scientologists are totally sick of are probably cringe at even the idea of having some sort of pretend birthday game. Like it's a bit much. It is a bit much for most former Scientologists. All right, let's see. Would you ever have Mark Vicente? Would you ever have Mark? Would you ever have Mark Vicente that was part of NXIVM on a live chat? Oh, I would love to. I would love to. Mark and Sarah Edmonds have a podcast. I believe they have a YouTube channel. They have a whole thing on cults. Yeah, I would absolutely love to sometime. I've never spoken to them directly. I know Mike knows them. He's met them. He's been on their podcast. So they'd probably be more likely to do something like that with Mike than me. But never say never. That would actually be a lot of fun. Okay, Phyllis Trueluck. Now that Danny Masterson has been convicted, will he now be ousted from Scientology? What about his family, who are members who remain a Scientologist? Okay, so Danny might have been privately and secretly declared a suppressive person, but I don't. My feeling on this is that Danny will not be declared a suppressive person because they don't want to lose all of the Mastersons, and the Mastersons are never going to disconnect from him. I believe they're going to declare him potential trouble source type B, as in Bravo, which means criminal in Scientology. And he will simply forever be ineligible to do any Scientology services. As simple as that. Okay. Pajkt wants to ask, when Scientology loses tax-exempt status, will the church fold? Will Cruz Travolta stay and support it? I believe them losing tax-exempt status will be the final chapter of Scientology. And I believe Cruz will stay until the very end. That's my personal guess. And I believe Travolta, let's see. How old are these guys? How old is John Travolta? How old is John Travolta? He's already 69. I believe John Travolta will die before Scientology loses tax exemption. I believe Tom Cruise will probably still be alive and go and be a member until the bitter end. That's my guess. Okay, Chow Yun Smut. Can we get the Solo 2D design on a lady's tee? Yeah, I know. Username checks out. LOL. I have another design idea for the Degraded Daughters too. Sure. Let me write that down. Okay. Do 2D assist on, you just said on a lady's tee. Okay. Yeah. Got it in there. Bada bang. Thank you, Chow Yun Smut. Lori plays. I've got a Busch Gardens Pass 2 and Disney. I'm 12 minutes from Busch Gardens. Let's meet up at the Smokehouse. Yes, the one thing I never do when I go to Busch Gardens is get the food there. I get so angry at how expensive it is that I actually load up on protein bars before I get into the park so I can pound a couple bars before I get in. I'm a cheapskate in some funny ways. It's funny. I'll spend money without thinking on big ticket items, but I'll stand there in the grocery store for 5 minutes, stressing over whether I want to pay $1.32 per pound for apples or $1.15. It gets a little ridiculous. So I don't like paying for food at Busch Gardens. But yeah, my Busch Gardens pass is one of my most valuable and prized possessions. So yeah, we'll have to meet up at the Smokehouse sometime. Ragdoll Ralph, have you told the parachute story anywhere? No, I haven't. I haven't told it anywhere. I mean, it's not like I never would. It's not like it was like, it's not like I'm going to break down telling the story. But it's just not what my channel's for. So I've never told that story. Yeah, there's your answer. Thank you, Ragdoll. Let's see. Rainy day. Did you see the article today about Bijou's devastation? Also saw someone's coverage from the courtroom, and Danny's response to the verdict was hot anger. Yeah, I mean, Jeffrey Augustine did a great video about his experience personally being in the courtroom while Danny Masterson was found guilty. He did a great a great job painting a mental image picture of what that was like and what that whole experience was. I did not see an article today about Bijou's devastation though, but I've been so busy today I haven't necessarily seen a lot of the articles that are out there today. But Jeffrey Augustine's video was great, and a lot of people saw that video too, so that's pretty cool. All right, let's see. Todd Johnson just donated to the Aftermath Foundation to support any current and future Jane Does. Well, there you go. Bada bang. Thank you, Todd. Why did Danny Masterson have to be convicted on 2 charges? Here's the reason. Each case, each charge that he had taken individually was beyond the statute of limitations. Due to California's one strike law, because multiple charges were brought at the same time, and because they involved the use of force, what would charges, these attacks that otherwise would have been past the statute of limitations were permitted to be brought, which is why he had to be found guilty on more than one. Because, like I said, on their own, each one was past the statute of limitations. Together, the statute of limitations didn't apply. So if he was only found guilty on one, it would have been, well, sorry, one's not good enough. One is past the statute of limitations. 2, that gets the job done. So that's why. If he had been convicted on only one charge, he would have walked. Crazy to think, huh? Okay, Daniel Essig. I get so many emails about this Braille skateboarding issue. What do you know of Braille skateboarding? Are they actually using it to recruit for the cult? What I know of Braille skateboarding is it's owned by a Scientologist. Now, are they actually using it to recruit for the cult? That's not what Scientologist-owned businesses exist for. Scientologist-owned businesses exist to make profit for the owner. If they are able to recruit people to Scientology, that's just sort of icing on the cake. It's not why the companies exist. So are they actually using it to recruit for the cult? Maybe. I don't have a lot of specifics about that, so I've never done a video about it, but I get a ton of emails asking me to. And if I have more information about it, I'll eventually do a video about it. Thank you for the question, Daniel. Jonathan Beatty. The man who farts in church sits on his own pew. Do you think that's why all the pictures of DM, he is standing alone? I don't know what that saying means. And I'm not totally sure if you're talking about Danny Masterson or David Miscavige. Oh boy, I've never heard that saying before. The man who farts in church sits on his own pew. I wish I could give you a better answer, Jonathan, but that's all I got. All right, let's see. Heather Core, sorry, I talked to them and I phrased it to account for the YouTube word limits. Targeting might have been too strong. Thanks for what you do. Oh, you're talking about the immigrants. I got it. Yes. No, I would say for the most part, remember Scientology, it costs money to do Scientology. So if they had to choose a target population, it wouldn't be people brand newly immigrated, to the United States, particularly not from Mexico or South America. Now they would target that population possibly to join staff. But when you're handing out truth about drugs booklets, you're not exactly recruiting for Scientology staff members. You know what I'm saying? Thank you again, Heather Core. Let's see. Okay. Marta Mojos. We're almost done here, guys. Marta Mejos. I remember from one of your videos that someone called DM Mickiewicz. That's the name of a famous Polish writer. But his name was Adam. Oh, Adam Mickiewicz. And Osa in Polish language means wasp. Very fitting. All the best. Yes. It was Mike Render who started calling David Miscavige Mickey Witz because of the photo of him wearing a little Mickey Mouse hat. That's where that came from. Thank you for the super chat. Stacy, okay, you have 3,000 people here wondering what happened with the parachute. Oh, I'll tell you the story. Here's what happened with the parachute. So I was doing my skydiving licensing program, and you have to do 25 jumps, get 25 jumps under your belt, and then you can do your final jump to get past for your final, to get certified, to get licensed. While you're doing your jumps for your class, someone jumps out with you. You cannot jump out just purely on your own without an instructor jumping out with you, unless you're certified or you have your license, which licensed, certified, I can't remember which one it is. I had never had anything go wrong on any of my jumps until it came time to do my final pass, my final checkout, whatever you want to call it. And on my final checkout, I went to go pull my chute, and I broke my form and I tumbled. And then I went to do it and I tumbled again. And then I pulled the chute, no problem. But by the time I got to the ground, the instructor said, well, I can't pass you because you tumbled. So you have to do it again. I was like, shit. So we went back up. We went back up and the exact same thing happened again. I went to reach for my chute and I broke my form and I tumbled. Except it was much worse this time, much, much worse. And it happened a third time and a fourth time, and the ground was getting really fucking close. And I was like, all I could think of was, I'm going to be that dumb son of a bitch you read about in the newspaper who hit the ground and somehow never pulled his chute. And I was like, well, I'm not going to have that happen. So I really broke my form and I reached, because I couldn't find the damn, people think that when you pull a parachute, you like pull a cord, and it's not, you don't do that anymore. You don't pull a rip cord. There's no rip cord. You have your parachute, and on top of your parachute is a little pilot chute, and attached to the top of the pilot chute is literally a hacky sack. And what you do is you're supposed to reach back and you're supposed to grab that hacky sack and throw it away from you. And then the pilot chute catches the air and the pilot chute catches the main chute. I could not get my hand on that hacky sack. I couldn't find it. So with both hands, I reach back and realize when you're falling at terminal velocity in a flat position, you're going about 120 miles an hour. But when you break form and you start tumbling, you start falling a lot faster than that, closer to 200 miles an hour. And I, with both hands, reached over to grab that hacky sack, and I'm tumbling and I'm tumbling and I'm tumbling, and I reach it and I throw the chute while I'm tumbling, which means as going as fast as possible. Horrible position to be in. The chute opens. My chest strap, I was going so fast when the chute opened that my chest strap that is supposed to be on your chest smacked me in the face, and my lip was bleeding. And that's, you guys know what it feels like to be hit in the face. Now you're all out of sorts. You're like, oh my God, your head's you got a sensation in your head and everything. And of course I was nowhere near the correct landing zone. I'm on the wrong side of the runway. I thought I was going to die. My chute opened less than 1,000 feet from the ground. I mean, that's like, I forget what the actual fall rate. It's less than 2 seconds from like hitting the ground. And I was shook, to put it mildly. And I was just like, you know what? I already did 26 jumps. Why bother? Why keep going? And here's the thing. When jumpers are doing their certification, they actually have sort of a little computerized battery operated thing on their chute that actually automatically deploys the chute at 1,000 feet. I forgot about that. You never think about that because you never use it. I mean, I never had a problem with the chute before. So what's going through my mind, I didn't realize, I didn't have the luxury of going, well, if I can't reach my chute, it'll automatically open at 1,000 feet. I was like, no, I'm going to die. I was sure I was going to die. And it was terrifying. So I just never went back. I mean, honestly, I would go back, but I'm like, what do I care? Do I need to be jumping out of planes right now? Like, not really. Who gives a shit? So that's the story. There you go, guys. Supreme Rula, your stamina is humbling. Do you rest enough? No, I don't rest enough. I do not rest enough, particularly not the last 2 days, but I'm working on it. Suzanne Oliver, any update on Reese? I haven't spoken to Reese in about a week, but as the last update, she wanted to do another video with me, so I got to get back with her, and we got to do that. Okay, Jonathan Beatty, I was talking about David Miscavige. I'm a long haul truck driver, and I just got the last book on Audible of all the SPTV crew. Fantastic. Except, Jonathan, I forget what your original question was. Dang it. I forget what you were talking about, but thank you for clarifying that. And thank you for the super chat. Phyllis Trueluck, did Scientology fund pay for Danny Masterson's defense legal fees? I too am a roller coaster fan. I too go solo to ride the rides. To the best of my knowledge, Scientology didn't fund his legal defense team, but you never really know. D Dunkel, thank you. D Dunkel again, thank you. Garrett W, is Bijou a Scientologist? If so, where's she at on the bridge? She is a Scientologist. I have no clue where she's at on the bridge. And that's all she wrote, folks. That is it. 2 hours and 15 minutes. Not bad, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, everyone, for hanging in there with me. Yeah, a lot of you stuck into that whole thing. That's pretty awesome, you guys. I had a lot of fun doing this. And it's only 7 o'clock. I'm even in time to go pick up my daughter from work. My oldest daughter, she's going to be a senior in high school next year. She got her driver's license. She drives everywhere now, and she's got a job at Little Caesars Pizza. It's so cute. She's got a Little Caesars hat, and she brings pizza home from work and everything. It's so adorable. So, all right, anyhow, that's all I got, you guys. Thank you all for joining me. Thanks to everyone who watches until the very end, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe